Okay, good day, class. So today we'll be talking about the risk management as applied to security, safety, and sanitation. So this is going to be a long discussion, so I suggest you to stay focused, and I'll be mentioning some important things, and some of which are not even included in your module, so I would suggest you to write it down. And after this discussion, as I keep on saying, I I might going to ask all of you or some of you to regarding to what I have discussed. So we're going to be moving on. First, now going to element 1. So this is a summary of what are we going to be discussing. Element 1, follow hygiene procedures, prevent hygiene risk, and maintain safe personal food handling for smooth front office desk operation and secured to destination. So this particular element is only going to tell you what are the safe handling practices that we're going to apply whenever we are working at the front desk, whenever we are working at the tour destination desk. Okay, and then we're going to be moving on. Next, what are the things that we need to do? First, comply with workplace hygiene procedures. What are these hygiene procedures? This unit comprises of 3 important elements. Number 1, follow hygiene procedures. The basic hygiene procedures, as we go on, we're going to talk about it very in detail, are the simple washing of hands, like maintaining the proper temperature of the food and avoiding cross-contamination. That's a basic idea of it. Next, identify and prevent hygiene risk. What are the hygiene risks? If you neglect your hygiene procedures, what is going to happen? So you might develop a bacteria on the food. So those are one of the problems. Next, maintain safe personal food handling and personal presentation standards. As I keep on saying with the other class, for you to be able to know that you're complying with the hotel standards or restaurant standard is for you to check your job description. Your job description based on the standard of the hotels. It will tell you the step-by-step information on how are you going to do your job and following the safe practices when it comes to hygiene procedures. Sorry. Okay, so the assessment later on, it could be in a form of oral questions and written questions which I already have given you, work projects, and practical exercises. So we are looking to on the practical exercises because I have one of you to be handled on campus. So let's see how it goes. Next, follow hygiene procedures. Once again, we are going to be dealing on it one by one. So performance criteria for this elements are identify relevant workplace hygiene procedures that need to be adhered to. So what are the hygiene procedures? There are basically 2 important points. Procedure set by the owner or the enterprise, and the health procedure by the national government, or what we call the legislation. Okay, that's a national government. Next, bullet number 2, identify enterprise standards. So that's the one that I've mentioned earlier, enterprise standard or the owner standard when it comes to the safety practices. And once again, legislated requirements apply to relevant work hygiene procedure. As you can see in the picture, the basic washing of hands is really important. That plays a big role, especially right now in the time of the pandemic and this new normal. It is very important to wash your hands every single time. If you're going to switch from one work to another, be able to wash your hands. Next, follow workplace hygiene procedures in accordance with the enterprise standards and legislated requirements. So basically the same thing. Moving on, follow hygiene procedures. In following hygiene procedures, what are the things that you're going to do in receive, handle, and store food items according to the enterprise standards? So there will come a time that you're going to be asked to receive a particular food coming for the supplier. There is a particular set of standards on how you're going to do it. Let's say you're asked to receive the goods for your restaurant. So one example is if you are there to receive the food, let's say for a milk, and you happen to notice that the milk is already out of temperature. Okay, so you're not supposed to accept that. The accepted temperature of the milk should be the same as the temperature of the refrigerator, which is 5 degrees or below 4 degrees Celsius. Okay. Next, prepare, serve, and store food in compliance with the enterprise standard and legislative requirements. Once again, for you to be able to do your job, you must comply to the enterprise standard. Enterprise standard pertains to the owner. Okay, the rules set by the owner, and the legislated requirements pertains to the national law imposed by the government of a particular country. For here in the Philippines, although we don't have, as of now, as far as I know, the national government of public health is not really strict when it comes to the protocols. It only got stricted right now because of the pandemic, but many years ago, they are not really into this matter. Next, clean food related items, utensils, and areas in compliance with the enterprise standards. So basically, anything that you handle should be based on the laws, should be based on the requirements of both the owner of the company and both of the national government standards. Now, 1.1, identify the relevant workplace hygiene procedure to be adhered to. So, once again, what are the things that you have to follow? It's being mentioned again: legislation, national government, enterprise policy and procedures. It's being done by the owner, and of course, the internal food safety system. Internal food safety system is being done by both of these legislation and enterprise policies. Next, identify relevant workplace hygiene procedures to be adhered. This is a continuation. What are you going to do? Speak with the manager. Speak with management is your responsibility. If this is your first job to work in the kitchen or to work in the F&B department, then you must be able to ask what are the things that are not clear to you, like especially when it comes to safety hygiene procedures. Okay. Next, visit local health or food safety authority. So visits local health or food safety is basically pertaining to the owner itself. Whenever you are the owner of the company, then you must be able to visit the health or the local health authority for you to get the list of the requirements that you have to follow and you have to apply on your establishment. Next, research through the internet. So whenever with the present situation right now, we are very dependent on the information in the internet because it is very convenient. So we can access any information that has something to do with the safety and security of the restaurant premises, of a hotel premises. Okay. Okay. Moving on. You must follow all enterprise policies and procedures relating to food safety in purchasing the food. Okay, whenever you're going to purchase and receiving the food, as what I have told you earlier, there's a particular temperature that you have to follow. You have a checklist that you're going to check. Oh, I'm receiving the egg. It says here that the temperature of the egg is this. So you have to compare. Okay, and it says here that I'm going to receive the dairy products. It says here that the temperature of the dairy products should be less than 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. And then you accept it if it's up to the temperature. Storing of food. As you can see on the right hand side, these are the condiments. On the left hand side of the picture, those are the boxes. Okay, so proper organization inside the food storage is very important. Okay, and you have to observe that. Next, defrosting frozen foods. So as we go on, we'll be talking about the proper defrosting procedure of the frozen food. Also, moving on. Next, how are you going whenever you are working in the bar, preparing and in a bar or in a kitchen department, preparing and cooking food, including cooling of hot food. Okay, there is a basic procedure, what we call 2/4 rule. Okay, we will discuss that later on, but we're gonna move on to the next one. Next, holding a temperature, hot and cold. So a particular temperature. In here, it only tells you that you need to store the food. Okay, hot food, you must be able to separate that properly away from the cold food, and there's no way you're going to mix them up. Next, reheating of cooked food. Reheating is also called thawing, which once again I will discuss later on. Next one is what are the proper ways of serving the food. So the basic protocols in a dining room is that you're not supposed to touch the plate with your thumb. So you need to carry the plate without the thumb touching it. And of course, what are the protocols in self-service food? So basically, self-service food pertains to what? The buffet area. The buffet area. So whenever you are tasked to work in the buffet area, so the things that you're going to be the things that you're going to be looking for are the sneeze guards. Next, identify relevant workplace hygiene procedures. So once again, that is the continuation. The first bullet, cleaning and sanitizing. In cleaning and sanitizing, we all know the basic cleaning procedures such as sweeping the floor, mopping the floor, but it doesn't stop there. In any establishment, you are required to apply a sanitizing agent. In the cruise ships that I've worked for, we use chlorine as a sanitizing agent. We also have what we call the Virox. The Virox is a highly concentrated chemical that kills bacteria and viruses, and we'll dilute that with water. And of course, different company varies. In Manila hotel they use, or here hotels in Manila, they are using Oxivir, okay, in sanitizing any surfaces. And observe food handling techniques. As what I've told you, basic separation of clean to dirty, okay, or cross-contamination should be avoided. Next, personal hygiene. You must be able to wash your hands regularly. Moving on to the next one, equipment maintenance. So the equipment maintenance pertains to what? The basic calibration of your food thermometer. The food thermometer should be calibrated every at least 6 months. Okay, so it will give you the exact temperature whenever you are checking the temperature of the food. Next, use of food thermometers. That's the one that I have told you earlier. And next we have the pest control. Pest control, as we all know, in any food services, you never want any pest in your establishment. So for you to be able to avoid that, you must be able to do all the necessary things that you need to do in order to control the pest. What are those? We have the mouse trap. We also have the regular checking. You can also hire some pest control agents that can stop that whenever it exists. But the bottom line is, whenever you see that there is already a traces of this pest, you must report it right away so it will not get big. Next, waste disposal. When it comes to waste disposal, we need to follow the standard in separating the garbages. Like you need to separate the food waste. You need to separate the garbage from its source, like paper to paper, plastic to plastic, and then glass to glass. In that way, your organization is also becoming an eco-friendly organization. Next, food recalls. We never want to have a food recalls. Food recalls, like somebody's going to tell you that this restaurant is serving an unclean food, and you never want that. So you need to avoid that, any kind of food recalls. Moving on, identify relevant workplace hygiene procedure. Once again, as continued, identify workplace of food safety hazard. Describe action to keep food under control. Okay, next, describe action to take when out of control situation occurs. Next, identify food safety records to be completed. So it always falls down into one basket whenever you're dealing with safety procedures. First, you need to do your job based on the job description. Second, you must be able to keep the record. Check the record if you are following the right temperature. Check the record if you are handling the food based on the standards of the company. Okay. So you can see here, it says fight back, or the fight bacteria cycle normally starts just by simply the separation of cooked and uncooked food. There's no way you're going to mix that, because that is the time that the bacteria will multiply. And of course, cooking food, there's a proper way of doing it, which we'll discuss later on. Chilling food and cleaning the food. Next, in relation to work, food, and safety, always be prepared to ask questions. Ask. Whenever you move from one company to another, as I keep on saying, hotel standards varies. The hotel that you have worked for could possibly be following a different guidelines when it comes to dealing with the food, when it comes to the best food handling practices. So whatever you've learned from different company might be different from the others. So the bottom line is, you should always ask. You should always double check. Next, always ask questions to clarify. So to clarify things, ask questions. Never be afraid. Basically the same thing. So when in doubt, ask question. So it keeps on telling you to ask question. Okay, so we are ready in element 1.2. Identify enterprise standards and legislated requirements. Enterprise, once again, the owner standards, and legislated requirements, or the national standards. Okay. Next. First bullet, always comply with legislated requirements. As you can see, some of which are getting redundant, but let's just comply. Let us just stick on what we have. Okay. Next, always follow house policies and procedures. Once again, I have mentioned that. Next, always adhere to house requirements where they differ to the notes. House requirements, the requirements of the particular restaurant, the requirements of a particular establishment. Where are you going to check that? By checking all of the instructions manual. Okay, so I'd like you to focus on this. At this point, I will give you 3 seconds, and I'd like you to take a screenshot of this. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for doing that. Now, the reason why I ask you to take a screenshot of this, because on your module, sorry, this image is not really clear. So here, as you can see, these are the certain temperature that you need to observe whenever you're serving the poultry, whenever you're serving the meat, egg dishes, and other food. Okay, but before we move on to that, let's focus on the left side first. Potentially hazardous foods must be stored out on a temperature danger zone of 5 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. So in the examinations that I'm going to give you, I will be sticking on the Fahrenheit, except for the refrigerator. But when it comes to food, I always stick on the Fahrenheit for you not to be confused. 5 degrees Celsius is equal to 40 Fahrenheit. Okay? And 60 Celsius is equal to 40 Fahrenheit. Okay? But we'll stick with the picture here. Okay? And all high protein, high moisture, low acids, also in high risk foods. So high risk foods are basically the ones, the dairy products foods, or even any uncooked foods are potentially hazardous food. That's why whenever you receive that frozen foods, it has to be refrigerated right away. And even the vegetables, it needs to be chilled right away. Do not let it hang in there for more than 10 minutes. Okay, you must be able to chill it right away. Okay, moving on. As you can see, 165 degrees. So whenever you check, let's say you have the poultry. Okay, the poultry is here on top of the plate. I am the cook. So the cook, what are you going to do is to stick on the food thermometer right there for a few seconds, and then in some thermometers it beeps like the body thermometers. So if you stick it out and you check, you're serving the chicken, or it's under the poultry category, you check that the temperature is 165. Oh, 165 based on the scale, I am good to go. I can serve this. So you serve it. Okay. But whenever you are serving the steak, okay, it says here the correct temperature of serving a steak is 145 Fahrenheit. Degree Fahrenheit. So you check the steak and they take it out, and then it gives you, I'm just assuming this is the food thermometer, okay? And then it gives you the temperature of 130. Okay, can I serve this? No, definitely not. Because why? The steak needs to be 145 Fahrenheit for you to be able to serve it. And of course, and even if it goes up, it's even better, no? Because the more it goes up, okay, the more the food becomes hotter. And it applies to the certain temperatures, like meats for medium steaks, 160 Fahrenheit. We also have the pork pork, egg dishes, and ground meats that should be served in 160 Fahrenheit. Okay, moving on. Continuation. Potentially hazardous food. These are the example. We have the milk products, egg products, and of course meat and poultry, all types of cuts, especially the uncooked ones. Next, small good products, but not salami. This is the continuation of the potentially hazardous food. Small good products, but not salami. Salami is an air-dried cured ham. Okay. Next, processed meats. Whenever you receive a processed meats, it needs to be refrigerated right away. There's no way you're going to leave that for more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes, okay, in room temperature. Next, we have fish, shellfish, and fish products. Those are under potentially hazardous food. Prepare foods containing potentially hazardous foods. So that's how you handle it. Make sure they are not going to be out of the temperature. Okay. Here comes the food thermometer again. TDZ stands for temperature danger zone. So you already know. Whenever the temperature is in between 140 down to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, that is the scale of the danger zone. If you're serving the steak at the temperature of 120, that is already a danger zone. That is the time that it will acquire some bacteria. Likewise, it applies to any kind of food, such as fish, such as eggs, such as pork. Okay, so that range of 140 down to 40 Fahrenheit is the danger zone. Okay, so high risk food must be kept out of range whenever possible, all the time. All time food spends in this zone is cumulative. So once again, we need to observe this religiously or every time. So now we're going to be moving on to 2/4. So 2/4, what does it mean? It is the basic idea of 2/4 is whenever, so there's a certain hour that the bacteria can multiply. The maximum hours of a food can stay safe is 4 hours. That is why if you're going to go in some of the hotels, after 4 hours they are going to close the breakfast and they are going to throw out the food. So if the manager tells you that we open the breakfast at 7 o'clock, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, by 11 o'clock the breakfast is already over. Okay, if they're going to tell you that the breakfast starts at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, the breakfast is already over, because they're going to throw the food. Not unless otherwise, if they have another set of restaurant in which they're going to prepare a new set of food. Okay, now whenever you have, so first bullet, high risk food is danger zone, so temperature danger zone for 4 hours. So whenever the food is out there in the food air on the food line, whenever the food is out in the food line or the buffet line for 4 hours, that needs to be thrown out. It cannot be refrigerated anymore. However, if the food has been there for 1 hour or 2 hours only, you can still refrigerate that. Okay, which is the bullet number 2, high risk food in temperature danger zone for 2 hours can be refrigerated and returned for another 2 hours. So over 4 hours, you throw that away. less than 2 hours, you can still refrigerate that. How about 3 hours? So 3 hours is basically considered already unsafe. So whenever it's 3 hours, you can throw it away. Identify, once again, it's a continuation. So as you can see, this is how the food thermometer looks like. This sharp edge right here, that's the cover, that is the thing that you stick on the meat. Okay, and that it will give you the certain temperature here. So this one is in Celsius. You can set it both for Celsius or Fahrenheit. Okay. Now, so the thermometer should be calibrated every 6 months. I told you from the start, and it should always be readily available for use. Check for accuracy for at least 6 months and accurate to plus or minus. So that's there's a process of calibrating it. So the thermometer should not only be cleaned but also sanitized. So there is a guidelines when it comes to sanitation of the thermometers. So allowed to reach room temperature. Okay. So treated with ice. So some of them put them on the ice just to make sure if the thermometer is reaching its maximum Fahrenheit. Next, drinks and food safe handling requirements for food applied beverage. So some of the words are mixed up, but the idea is there. Okay. Do not handle ice or fruit with bare hands. So as we all know, you're not supposed to handle ice. You can only do that at home, but not in every other working areas. Use the ice tongs. Likewise in the food, and even when you are getting the fruit in the food line or buffet, we use the tongs. We never have a contact with any of the food with our hands, especially right now. So do not reuse plate waste. So whenever, like the guest on a buffet line is getting a food with a used plate, stop them. Tell them nicely, I'm sorry ma'am, you cannot get inside the line with that used plate. So this happens every time, especially on the cruise ships that I've worked for, and some of the guests would feel mad whenever you are telling them what to do. Just explain them nicely that is against the highest safety procedure. Okay. Store the drinking straws correctly. So whenever you're storing the drinking straws, right now the straws should normally have a paper, covered with paper. So this is straw, it's normally covered with paper. Okay, so you must be able to hold it. But the bottom line is your hands should not have a contact with the tip of the straw where the guest is going to drink it. That is a big no. Moving on, second to the last slide. Next, ensure the glass washer. So now this is basically talking about the glass washer machine. So there is a temperature that you need to check. In every glass machine, there is a certain temperature that it will that you can see. Okay, whenever you put on the glass, make sure it is 70 degrees Celsius. Okay, next, put the sanitizing agent or the denaturing agent in the dip trays. No smoking inside. Wash your hands properly. That's very straightforward, and we all know that. Now, identify standards or requirements in applying workplace hygiene procedures. Wear clean clothes, maintaining clean hands and nails. Do not work when sick. Obviously, whenever you're not feeling well, never ever come to work. And check all glasses. All glasses are cleaned. Okay, be able to check the glasses if there are any cuts, because that is or that could be dangerous for the guest. That ends element 1.2. We're going to be moving on to element 1.3. Okay. Element 1.3. Follow workplace hygiene procedures. So basically, this is the continuation in a broader version of the hygiene procedure. First, what are the best practices of the food handlers? Avoid touching food with bare hands. We all know that by now. The company standards, some of which or majority of them will require you to wear gloves. Wear the gloves and hold the food. Next, avoid touching food contact surfaces with bare hands. Any contact surfaces? What are the food contact surfaces? It could be the chopping boards. It could be the serving spoon, and a lot more equipments in cooking equipments. Do not wear jewelry. So always remember, watches, these rings, they are not allowed, especially the ones working in the kitchen. But here, as you can see, he is wearing watch. Okay, he's supposed to, I guess he's the chef, that's why. But anyway, that is off the standard. That is not the proper way. You should not have any of the watches. Next, follow workplace hygiene procedures. Control and or cover facial hair. So it's necessary for you to clean your face, for you to clean your nails, for you to tie up your hair in such a way that there will not be any traces of your hair falling on the food. Do not wear food handling clothes to and from work. Whenever you're coming from your home going to your working place, you're not supposed to wear your uniform, because that can be contaminated with something else. Okay, so you only wear your working clothes, especially for the cooks, once you're ready inside the premises. Follow workplace hygiene procedures. So cover all cuts whenever you're being cut by the knives. Okay, cover it. And then do not handle unprotected food when ill. So we all know whenever you're sick, you're not supposed to go to work. Sorry. Stay away from work if suffering from common disease. That's very straightforward. Another hygiene procedure: when wearing disposable gloves, change them if they become torn. So you change the gloves whenever they are worn out, whenever there is a visible holes on it. And you change your gloves when handling from one food to another. Let's say I'm handling with the vegetables right now. And after 10 minutes, I'll be switching to cutting the potatoes. Okay? There is no way for me to use the same gloves that I use on the vegetables or the lettuce, while at the same time I'm going to shift in cutting the cooked potatoes. Okay, because that is already considered cross-contamination. So you wash your hands, or you change your gloves from one task to another, from vegetable section to fruit section to meat section. You change your gloves everywhere you're going to work. So at least it says here change every hour, but the best practice would be to change it every task. Okay, because to avoid any cross contamination. Moving on, we have change glove if money is handled. We all know that you're not supposed to hold money. Do not change gloves over food or food surfaces. So don't change it whenever you're on top of, like here in the salad, because there might be some, like your sweat could be inside the gloves, so you don't want your sweat to fall into the salad or any food. Never reuse gloves. Never reuse. That's why I told you to use different gloves in every task. So never ever reuse them. Do not turn gloves inside out and use again. So basically the same thing. Next, another hygiene procedure. Avoid loose fitting clothes. Do not cough or sneeze. We all know that. Avoid jewelries. Do not wear food handling clothes from work. Once again, basically the same. Next, what are the different hygiene procedures? Do not handle cooked or ready to eat food with bare hands. We all know that. Handle cups by handle and glass, not their base. So as you can see the picture here, that's how you do it. Okay, there's no way you're going to hold the glass at the rim, because that is where the guests are going to drink. So the bottom line is, whatever it is that you don't want your server to do unto you is what you have to think. Kung ayaw mo na hawakan nila ng waiter mo yung rim ng baso, that is also what you have to do for work. And that applies to the cups and any other types of beverages. Follow workplace hygiene procedure. Hair tied back. Do not touch hair. So do not touch any parts of your face. Whenever it becomes itchy, you can take off the gloves, go but the restroom and you can have it fixed, but never at work. Nails has to be cut. Okay, next, wear clean clothes when handling food. We all know that. Clean uniform, that is a must. Okay, every day have a spare set of clothes at work. Wear protective clothing. That's very straightforward. And whenever you have a cut, you must be able to apply on these band-aids, colored band-aids. Okay, use finger stole. Okay. Moving on, always be alert to the potential for unsafe food handling practices in the working place. Observe practices of others. So practices of others meaning to say, as you can see, the chef. Okay, the chef is talking to his cooks. So basically, I can say that whatever that the chef is doing is basically the safe handling practices. So whenever the cooks should comply with whatever the chef has told them. Inspect equipment, other food utensils and surfaces. Review food safety records. Safety records is very important. That is where we put on the proper temperature. If we have any issues with the food, then we write it down. In that way, that problem will not happen again. Okay, what else? Act quickly to report them whenever you identify any problems in your working place. Report it to the manager. Report to the chef right away. So report verbally, face-to-face, or via telephone if you have found out, like, let's say in the restaurant. So what's risky there is that the waiter has found a piece of a paper in the soup. So you need to report that right away. So immediate action could be done. Next, reports may be made to the management. So top of management, as I keep on telling you, should be reported. In that way, your maitre d' or the head of department or the executive chef will be able to relay that information to their subordinates. In that way, that problem will not happen anymore. Okay, let's say they've found a piece of paper. So the chef is going to tell them, so never ever have a paper on your area. Whenever you're dealing with the special order, do not put the paper on top of the plate, because that is unhygienic. Next, relevant staff. be able to talk to the relevant staff when it becomes necessary, so the staff would be able to understand what is the problem, the causes of the problem as well. And of course, talk to the customers. That is a must. So you must be able to talk to the customer and calm the customer. In that way, they're not going to complain. And of course, always follow with the local health authorities procedure. Okay, next, when reporting to unsafe food handling practices, identify the food involved. So, reporting unsafe. So, whenever you have witnessed a problem in a dining room or in the kitchen department, so these are the things that you have to do. Identify the food involved. So, if that is penne all'arrabbiata pasta in tomato sauce, write it down. Penne all'arrabbiata was served by Juan and Pedro. So you have the information. Advice of action already taken. So the action was Juan and Pedro was informed about the incident, and they are going to be investigated if the problem happened between the co-waiters or inside the kitchen. So that is how you do it. Next. Okay, recommended remedial action. So whatever action is going to be done by the chef should be put in place. And then identify the cause of the problem. What is the cause of the problem? The cause of the problem may be because the cook was talking to his colleague. That's why he didn't notice that there was a piece of paper on the food. And suggest an action. I suggest an action to prevent recurrence. So once again, that is how you handle the food. Whatever action you might have, that will fall under the risk management. Okay, that's the reason why we're talking about this, to talk about the problem. And once the problem is there, that shouldn't be repeated. Okay. Moving on to element 1.4. Okay. Right up. 1.4. Next, receive, handle, and store food item according to the enterprise. I think I will come back. Thank you very much. This is the first discussion, and I should be able to show you the second part of this. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be with you. Stay right there, okay? I'll be with you.